Now, I'll tell you something that is actually dear to my heart. I absolutely love birds. I don't know when I became such a bird fanatic, but even last night going for a walk and I was down by the beach and I went through this little bit of bush area and I'm spotting the tui and the rosella and the fantail. And I'm like, I just love this. And I think, native birds, you can kind of take it for granted because actually there's more than 80% of them are actually threatened. And so today, actually, voting is now open not just for the bird of the year, but the bird of the century. 77 magnificent native birds strutting their stuff and vying for your vote. You can select your top 5 candidates. Alan Rykers from Forest and Bird joins us on the show this morning to discuss. Good morning, Alan.
Kia ora.
Nice to connect with you again. Now, bird of the century. That's a big title, and that's because I understand Forest and Bird. You guys are 100 years old, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Normally we do Bird of the Year, but we are rebranding temporarily just for 1 year only to celebrate our big 100th birthday.
That's an amazing thing to reflect on. 100 years of taking care of our birds and our forests. And I see this year for Bird of the Century, you've actually included 5 extinct birds. Why have you guys done that?
Yeah, so we looked back over the past 100 or so years, and there have been a few birds that have sadly disappeared in that time. So those 5 birds are the bush wren, which actually went extinct in 1972. So, that's within the lifetime of many people who are
Me.
still around. Yeah. Um, And similarly, the South Island snipe, the tutukiwi, that was in the 1960s that went extinct. And then we've also got the huia,
Yeah,
such an icon.
for
Yep.
sure.
Um, the pio, which is also sometimes called the New Zealand thrush, so a
Okay.
really beautiful songbird that's gone. And the fifth one is the laughing owl.
Wow, that's sad. How do you I know it's a bit of a strange question, but how do you decide that a bird's extinct? Like, I know on the website it shows you that what birds are sort of at risk and ones that are doing okay. Like is how long do you I guess the certain areas that they inhabit in the country, but how do you know that they haven't just flown off somewhere else? Like, what's the sort of time frame with that? Do you know?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's something that scientists are still figuring out. I mean, if you look at the takahe, we thought that was extinct for 50 years and then was rediscovered living in the Murchison Mountains in the 1940s. And at the moment, even the South Island kōkako, which is similar to the North Island kōkako, but it has these bright orange wattles. That is technically classified as data deficient because someone might have seen it, I think back in 2007 or so. But before that, it was considered extinct for quite some time. So it's kind of a tricky question.
Yeah. So that leads me to another question. If there are birds that you're sort of concerned about, and obviously you talk about scientists, but people who are into, following all the people like myself, do you rely on them at all for, they've gone off somewhere? I mean, I don't go off and places to go tramping, but they might go off to some spot that isn't inhabited and they see something. You like to get that sort of feedback from people?
Absolutely. I believe that's what's happened with the South Island kōkako, and there are people who are going out and trying to find it. But yeah, for anyone who's out in those kind of remote areas,
Yeah.
if you hear something or see something a bit different, I think it's definitely worth following it up.
Yeah, for sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, 80% of our native bird species are at risk of extinction. What can ordinary New Zealanders like myself do to help prevent that?
Yeah, it's a pretty sad statistic, and there's plenty we can do. So, one of the biggest threats to many of our native bird species is, of course, introduced predators like rats, stoats, possums, and cats, and also dogs for some species as well. And so, you can get involved in your local community trapping program, but also it could be things like keeping your dog on a leash when you're in areas where there might be penguins.
Mm.
Or maybe considering, maybe I should keep my cat indoors at night so it's not out there hunting some of our native birds. So those are some really simple things people can do. And also just speaking up for, habitat loss is another thing that threatens many of our native birds. And so raising your voice and saying, hey, we shouldn't cut down that patch of forest, getting involved in Forest and Bird is a really great way to, speak up for our birds.
Yeah. Speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so good to chat with you today, Ellen. Now, if you'd like to vote, because I think it's a great thing to do, I've had a bit of a look and I'm already starting to pick out my favourites, but I won't tell you what. Birdoftheyear.org.nz is the place to vote. Birdoftheyear.org.nz. Ellen Rykers, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.